Hey, good evening, everybody. 안녕하세요. So I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to follow the most #1 cardinal rule for post-dinner speeches. I'm going to try to keep it short and, make sure the slides aren't too complicated. All right, so today I'm going to talk about, we've heard from the leaders from media and the government, and today, or at this hour, I want to bring it back to the founder level. So, in my opinion, right now we're undergoing a big platform shift in AI. So, having experience being a founder in the past and sitting on both ends of the innovation, I learned how quickly founders actually have to move when platform shifts happen. And also being at Samsung, I've noticed, how difficult it is to move at a big organization. So when these things happen, and they don't happen very often, so technology typically moves in waves, right? Every 10 to 15 years, you have a major change. So you've seen that with PC, probably most of you in the audience, web, mobile, cloud, and now AI. So I think the most important that happens is not just the technology changing, but actually who captures the value, right? So who are the leaders? Who are the winners? As you can tell already on the slide, in the mobile, there's a lot of names that already don't exist, right? Early mobile leaders were BlackBerry, Nokia, all these other things. So there's a complete reshuffling that happens when the platform change. So the same thing is happening now with AI. So it also feels unclear, right? And I want to assure you that's pretty normal, right? Early platform changes are pretty chaotic. So you've seen that with mobile, you had all kinds of app stores, Windows phones and all kinds of weird ideas that people were trying to test. You had the early web was super chaotic, right? So this is very similar. We have a bunch of different ideas. We have too much capital, possibly too much capital flowing. No obvious winners, right? So this assures that we're still early in the platform change. So what's actually new? So in my mind, what's fundamental in this platform change is AI collapses the cost of intelligence. So what happens when the cost of intelligence goes down? When the cost of intelligence goes down, it no longer is something valuable, right? So if intelligence is cheap, it's not the source of value, right? So the value moves to something else. We see all kinds of models converging today. You have all the big players doing similar capabilities or continue to do similar capabilities. So you can probably predict that models will become omnipresent. Everybody will get access to them. They'll be pretty cheap. And as we all know, commodities don't create durable moats. It's just like providing electricity, right? So you'll have a bunch of these models that are somewhat similar. Everybody will get access to them. So what happens next? The real question, I think, is, where does the value sit? If the intelligence is cheap, and this is new, right? Early platform shift for computers, we were discovering new intelligence. Now, the intelligence is not only there, but it's omnipresent, cheap, and very accessible. So where does the value get captured? So I call it from raw intelligence to real integration. So if we have the intelligence available on demand and everywhere, what becomes important is not what's abundant, it's what's scarce. And what's scarce is distribution, right? So all the companies that have good distribution, workflow ownership. So you're no longer just providing intelligence as a company. You have to provide the intelligence where the work happens, right? So where the workflow is happening. User experience. So when you have a bunch of intelligence, again, you're going to choose the ones that you trust, those that have the right user experience that you trust, right? So you want to be exactly where that is. And again, the value also moves to vertical focus. So if you're vertically focused, you have more chances of not being replicated, right? Now, moving on to the platform, we don't know the ceiling yet, right? We know this thing is big, and probably the least favorable outcome, this thing is going to be as big as the internet, right? So most likely much bigger, maybe, uncertainty brings skeptics, right? Is this going to be too big? Are we over analyzing this as a bubble, or other people say, hey, that's another tech trend. I think the point is here is going to be at least as big as the internet, right? Or mobile. That's already enough. So you don't need to figure out, is this real big shift? It certainly is big and might be just even bigger. So as you know, internet brought companies like Google, mobile had all kinds of things, new workflows coming in, companies like Uber and things like that. So this is kind of the same pattern. Now, once we know this platform is there and it's accelerating, it's big, what happens to companies and what happens to startups? I think one of the big insights is AI accelerates global competition. So you no longer can just build something in separation and Seoul. You immediately become global, right? You're playing in the leveled playing field. With AI, it's so much easier to copy something. It's so much easier to gain capabilities. So suddenly, all startups, all companies are competing on the global stage. So that's the pessimistic side. The optimistic side, you can get access to all these capabilities really quickly, right? But the important thing is you can't just think of go-to-market as a startup for scaling. You no longer have this protection of a local market. You have to immediately step into global stage, or at least think about what are your first steps in the global stage, right? Because when you're a startup in Korea, you're already competing with other companies globally that are emerging. So I see a lot of nods, so that's a good sign. Now, how value is created today? It's easy to think that we're straight going to jump into this AI outcome, which is sci-fi-like. But typically what happens, we have first absorption, where you absorb the intelligence, and you see that in different workflows. Part of the reason Microsoft, a little nod over here, is winning with Copilot is because they were able to put it in Office, right? Not necessarily that they have better models or better intelligence. So absorption happens first. So you automate obvious work, you unbundle slow workflows, and then finally redefine categories. So if you are a startup, you should still focus on the difficult problems first, not necessarily reach for the sci-fi scenario, because those who adapt quicker in this AI platform shift typically win. So again, what are the opportunities? So my practical direction from an investor's standpoint and former Samsung guy, I can tell you, focus on painful domain-specific workflows. So pick a domain that you're strong with, whether that's something very boring that you have background in logistics or medical records, painful domain-specific that others aren't trying to solve. Design global distribution early. Again, you're going to compete very quickly on the global stage. You can't forego that step. Embed AI into real products, not just demos. Demos look good, but if you're embedded in the workflow, it's much harder to get you out of that, right? You're going exactly where the customers are already opening. They're opening their Gmail, there's intelligence there, and so on. And try to use AI to amplify existing strength. So whatever you're doing, use AI to amplify it. That's why I think a lot of the big companies that will emerge won't necessarily look like AI labs. They're going to look like great software companies that maybe aren't AI native, but use AI as an amplifier. So on the last optimistic note, remember, AI doesn't necessarily replace great teams. It just resets the game. So thank you very much. We'll move to the Q&A. 감사합니다.